That I think my first question that I wanted to ask the both of you is like why we're actually talking about this, why we're having to talk about workplace happiness and navigating burnout and and just being a modern worker and sort of the lives that we lead. So that's going to be my first question. But before we get going on that, I would like you guys to introduce yourself a little bit. So why don't we start with you, Toddi?
Yeah, so Toddi Norum, and actually, I think I've been a member of the community since 2017, so almost through the way back. And frankly, this community's been a lifeline for me. It's like a lot of people have been talking about burnout recently, and I think post-COVID, we've all had just kind of like our lives turned upside down and had to rethink work, right? So yeah, that's me. I actually currently just switched from working for a defense contractor, and now I'm back in the commercial space, and I really like it. I work hybrid actually, but there's still that struggle going on in my life of like what excites me about work these days, and I think a lot of that has to do post COVID of thinking, you know, what matters, and I still care a lot about work. So I want to navigate through it and figure out how to get on the other side and still be excited by work. So.
Okay,
Awesome.
Brent, how about you? Let's hear your story, Brent.
Well, we don't have a whole lot of time, and it's been a while since I've been here, but you guys probably remember how I roll. So cut me off if I start going too long. But been in the industry for a super long time. I'll just leave it at that. Worked in pretty much all of the different positions you could possibly imagine inside of learning and development industry. From the entry level stuff up to managing teams, building teams, and being a part of working in the vendor community, as well as leading DevLearn for the e-learning guild, where I met Luis many, many moons ago, back in our early days, 2005, 2006, something like that. And yeah, I've been working from home for the vast majority of my career. So when COVID hit, didn't change my life work-wise at all. And that was kind of the odd thing for me. But what I quickly realized was, oh, everybody else is struggling with this. I can probably help. And so I did a lot of that over COVID, helping people make that transition and coaching people through that and whatnot. So I learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about myself over the last 30 years doing this working from home thing. So lots of stories to share. I hope it's beneficial.
Yeah. So the reason that we've kind of come together to talk about this was, one, Brent, you posted that link to, or that reference to Alison Rossett from TLDC 16, and that wonderful keynote that she did way back when, I guess 7 years ago, and so that really sort of was a very timely post, because at the same time, Toddi, we were talking to Julia, and and just talking about workplace, mental health and just well-being and burnout and all of that. And I was actually seeing some of those types of conversations happening within the community, and also just in other places, Reddit and LinkedIn. It just seems like this time of year, it's especially, I guess they call it kind of those seasonal lows, right? Maybe it was like pre-Thanksgiving, people are sort of starting to feel that. And also just the climate overall with the economy and the job market is really, really challenging right now. So hence we're having this conversation. And so we have just a series of slides that we had prepared, where we're going to just sort of discuss some of these things that we're seeing, and also, just ask Toddi and Brent about some of their own experiences with remote work and mental health, well-being, and then like burnout. So Brent, let's start with you. Your personal experiences with burnout.
Yeah, I don't I like to think I don't burn out much, but I think I probably have burnt out multiple times and just didn't know it. But I like to think of it more as being bored out. So it's like the precursor, right? It's the tiny little symptom that I learned to sense over the years. It's like when I'm starting to feel I don't know if bored is the right term, but maybe not inspired, like Toddi was mentioning, and um, not just not having that internal motivation to do whatever. But yet I still, you still plow ahead every single day. It, to me, I equate that more to boredom than to burnout, because there's just, when there starts to be more other things that I'd rather be doing than the work thing, that's when I know I'm probably headed down a bad path from a work experience. And so
Can I be
took
real
me a while to figure
specific
it
and
out.
ask you? Can I ask you? Did you ever experience burnout when you were at Intel?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was probably the first place where, I think they invented burnout. I think I think they invented the it was just very intense. Everything there was intense. I think I felt the burnout, um, after, when I got close to my 10 years. I had a plan to get out at 10 years. I got out about 6 months early. And I think that was just because of the boredom. I discovered I wasn't a big giant corporate person, especially at that point in my career. Like right now, as an older, more mature professional, I could probably go back and probably handle that stuff a little bit better. But back at that age and whatnot, it was just, everything moved too slowly. Everything was far too managed for my personality, not a lot of room for experimentation. And, there were a couple organizations that I worked in there that were fantastic. My managers understood me, they understood my personality and let me run with it. Others, not so much. And yeah, I think I saw more other people burn out. And I saw what burnout was in reality for people that don't have support systems and don't manage their time. So just when I left, there were a couple older women on my team that actually experienced heart problems, and the ambulances came and everything, because everybody knew that the layoffs were coming and all that kind of stuff, and they were nearing retirement and they couldn't afford to be let go. And it just kind of freaked me out. And I remember telling my boss, "Hey, I'm going to be fine. If you could put me on one of those cap plans so that I don't want to leave and not have a package. So if you could just kind of, encourage, do whatever you have to do to put me on the list to get me a plan instead of these folks that are just struggling so much.
Mhm.
Oh, but please do." And so
Right.
they worked it out. And I think I was at an early e-learning guild event. I don't even think they called themselves the e-learning guild when I was at that event yet. And yeah, I was in. I was giving some presentations. Got called up into my office. Had the HR meeting. Went back down. Met Heidi for lunch and said, "Well, I'm looking for work."
Wow. That's so timely. How about you, Toddy? Personal
Um,
experiences.
Yeah, so I mean, I can completely relate to the idea that, you just don't have enough that's challenging. Because I have worked in scenarios in the past where, again, my management realized that like I like to experiment. I was given budgets, I was given timelines to do new things. I was actually doing VR before it was ever called VR, like doing really cool things. And I right now I feel like that has just been really reined in, and I don't know if it's just a thing post COVID that companies can't get enough people. They can't find money to go out and do the experiment. They can't, pose the business question to say, is this worth it? It seems to be a very different landscape than it was, even 10 years ago. And so I'm really frustrated by it. Like I love this field. You guys know I'm probably one of the geekiest people when it comes to learning and development. Like, especially when you talk about technology and implementing
Yeah.
technology. Like, how can we make it better for the people that are out there learning? I mean, that's always my first focus. But, the second focus is how can we make a management understand the value of this, right? And, electronic solutions have made their way into our businesses everywhere, but it seems to be devoid still in L&D. And so that's really frustrating to me because I know that we can leverage technologies in ways that can really ramp us up to scale in a lot of businesses that can show their value. And yet, I just feel like I get told no on every front. And it's not just my current role. It's been the last few roles that I've had. And I don't know if this is a COVID thing where the budgets are just so slashed or things are so slim as far as
Yeah.
staffing. But yeah, it's frustrating because I'm not finding the opportunities to go out and tinker and experiment, and I really want to. And I mentioned it earlier to you guys. I haven't been able to go to any events like Dev Learn or anything with my employer paying for it. And I'm frustrated that the people we work for don't recognize that we need that face time with others doing really cool things to be inspired. Sometimes you'll find it at work if you're part of a large organization. Sometimes you're just kind of a lone wolf and you really do need that inspiration from somebody else who's doing something awesome. But I have a lot of FOMO and jealousy when it comes to that. I'm like, ooh, you get to do that?
Yeah. So, it actually sounds like, well, like Michelle Johnson in chat is saying disengaged. Like that's how,
absolutely.
and that she experiences that sometimes. So it's kind of sounds like, and we need to talk about this is, solutions to the burnout. It sounds like Toddi, like having opportunities to go, to conferences and to learn, to experience something, to help with your career, that can help with it. But, Brent, like what have you done to help you with burnout to kind of recover from situations like that?
Well, a lot of the times for me, I think it's just doing other things and just escaping for a while and just completely disconnecting. And I think I don't know. I guess over the many years that I've had to do the working from home thing, I've discovered, certain little things that tend to be triggers that get me down or starting to feel that depression setting in or that anxiety setting in. And a lot is just sitting at the desk too much and not getting outside. I'm blessed to live in Arizona, so we have a lot of sun, and sun is good for you. So you got to get out in it. If you sit in the dark for too long, it physically, it can be a real, be a real issue. So I learned that I need to get out and I don't know if it works that way for everybody, but I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy. And so I just need to get out. So I just learned that I have to get outside and do stuff, whether it's running or mountain biking or just getting out and walking or doing whatever. I have to do that. And I just have to have other hobbies, other things that I do. And thankfully, I have a laundry list of 1,000 things I like to do, which is both a blessing and a curse. I'm easily distracted, but, I can easily pick up one of those things and just disappear and disconnect for a while, and it helps. So I think that's the biggest thing. You got to have other stuff that you do, other things in your life besides your work, or else, it can be hard.
How about you, Toddi?
Yeah, so like I could not work without my music, and that's both at the workplace and at home. And it has to be the right type of music. And I'm the same way. I live like right off of like about 35 miles of walking paths right out my back door, and that is truly kind of my lifeline on a lot of occasions. Is I'll just head out the door, and there's some other things that I do. I actually am still out there creating documentaries. I had a small documentary that I put together this last summer. And so like that focus really does help because that's where your creative juices can go, and as long as you can afford to do these things, like producing a documentary is not cheap. But it's just like, now I'm entering this thing into film festivals. And so, it gives me a focus that lets me not think about, things I can't do in my role. So all good though. But it's having to really think through what you can do. And I do a lot of time blocking as well, as far as like giving myself time to go out for a walk. I take that as my lunch. I even do it at work when I'm at the job site. I take a walk around some of the paths because I just need to like clear my head. And I've got a coworker that does it more than I do. He's gone. He's up for a walk. So
yeah, no, and it's kind of a perfect segue to the next slide. Sorry, I didn't realize that we had the we went from Canva to PowerPoint on this slide deck. So there's
Oh no.
crazy
Uh-oh.
stuff happening. But so it almost sounds like you have to kind of have these boundaries, right, between your work and your personal life. I know for myself that if I didn't do TLDC aside from what I do, to get my regular paycheck, I'd probably, I mean, I would have figured something else out. I'd have to come up with something else, because TLDC is actually in a lot of ways an escape for me, because it lets me sort of do something that internally is really important for me to do, which is, just to help other people. And so, just been able to power through and just keep it going for all these years, because it's important to me. And then, just do my work at the work that I do at O'Reilly, and just, and cash that paycheck on a regular basis. But how about the two of you, like setting your boundaries between work and personal life? Like how, especially as remote workers, and Toddi, as you as a hybrid, what have you done to be able to make sure that those boundaries are there?
Yeah, I don't answer emails after hours. I don't look at the phone or the email at all. It's like, 5 o'clock rolls around and I'm done. I didn't used to do that, and it was almost expected at some of the other organizations that I was at, that you would look at it on the weekend and people like, oh, I emailed you this week. I'm like, that's nice. I saw it on a Monday morning. But that boundary just can't change. I'm not giving my off time to anybody that I work for, because they don't live in my house.
So you have drawn some pretty like clear, very, very, very like solid boundaries between
Yeah.
your work and personal life.
Yeah, definitely. My mom was here last week, so I took the week off to be with my mom. Didn't open up the computer. I'm like, nope, my mom's here. My mom's 79. I have, time with my mom that's special, and not
Yeah.
interrupting that for work. Wow.
Okay. And I'm just seeing all these things that Quetzal is posting, which is a total distraction. But so how about anybody in chat? Do you have any boundaries that you've set, or is your work and personal life kind of interconnected? And then Brent, I know for you, I mean, a lot of times you have always, it seems like you've sometimes just, it's all one big thing, like at different points in your life. But how about your boundaries currently? Like, is that something that you've been able to set?
I think so. Well, so it's a lot easier because all 3 kids are now out of the house. So that changes things significantly. And my wife, Linda, is very, very supportive of me, doing the work I need to do whenever I need to do it. Working now for a global software company, sometimes you have to support Australia or, the APAC region. And so you have to do a late meeting, every now and then, or, and so you just flex that stuff. But yeah, for me, I think, I need, just because of the way I need to function just to stay healthy, I have to bounce around from certain things. So I think for me, one of the benefits of being at home is that when I can always tell I'm stuck because I'm staring at my screen and I'm not too sure what to do next. But I know there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have to do, and I can actually see the things that I have to do. But for some reason, I just can't do any of them. I know it sounds really weird, but that's when I just know I have to just get up, go outside, go do something else for 20, 30 minutes. And then when I come back, it's like, oh yeah, I have to do that. Okay. And I'll start doing it, or I'll think about it while I'm out walking or whatever. It'll be like, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I should be doing this. Oh yeah, I really want to do that. Okay. I'm going to get back and start doing that particular thing. It's weird, but it's taken me 50 years to figure out all of the little quirks of how to make it work. But, and I am certainly not perfect at it, but yeah, I mean, I figured it out. I mean, the boundaries for me are the work stuff. Like the time blocking is a big thing for me that I have to do. I have to just tell myself I'm going to set a timer for 45 minutes and I'm going to turn everything else off. And I'm just going to turn on that one app to do the thing that I'm doing, whether it's writing, I'll just have one app to write in. If it's video, I'll just have the video stuff open, and I will just force myself to not think about anything, not do anything else, ignore the phone when it rings, ignore the door knockings, all that stuff, and pretend like I'm just in a different space. And that seems to help a lot. But for me, it's not struggling with boundaries, with like, interruptions and the outside world. It's forcing boundaries on myself to actually get work done.
Mhm.
That's more of a struggle for me. And I guess it's a different way of framing it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, and I've started in like my browsers setting up groups of things so that like when I need to do a task, I have all of those pages that I need to get to in one place, and I organize it that way, which I don't know if I ever felt the need to do that before, but distraction and I don't know, like I don't deal with distractions now as well as I did before. So like I need to do the same thing, Brent. Like I need to have all those windows open, everything needs to be focused, and shut everything else down so there's no other notifications and no slacks and no nothing like that, because it just does take a lot more concentration. I don't know if that's just age or maybe it is part of the burnout. You have to be more focused.
How
I
long
think
did it
it's
take? How long did it take you guys to realize that you needed to establish boundaries?
Too long.
Because I know for myself that I was
after
rewarded.
failing.
Yeah, I was rewarded. Like the more that I let work be my personal life, the more money I made. Like if I really truly dedicated myself to my job, I would just get praise and I would get raises. And it's like, oh yeah, like, he just works all the time. He does so many things. And then you realize, yeah, you suffer burnout. You sort of come back around and like, why am I doing this? Why did I let my job take over my life? But is there, I mean, how do you even know when, or like, how come we're not even taught this like at a younger age that you need to establish these boundaries? I mean, hasn't it taken a while for you to figure it out?
It has for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I said, I think for me, I've struggled with, just the focus and just figuring out on the productivity side. I don't think, that's ever really been, um, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think back when boundaries really were an issue, like when the kids were young and all that kind of stuff. And I was still working from home, and it's like, no, I can't help with the laundry. No, I can't help with the kids. No, I can't, but yet you're still in your office and you're trying to work, but you hear all the struggles and the things that are going on
Yeah.
in the same building that you're in, your house,
Mhm.
and you want desperately to be helpful, but you can't. I mean, that's stress, and that's horrible. That's when I decided I need to go get my own office somewhere else, and do that. So I think having a place to go outside of your home is a good boundary to
Yeah.
set,
Yeah.
whether it's an office or a coffee shop or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
really
talk to
like, oh,
people.
yeah. Paul's comment here. Our education system really does promote the cog in the system approach. It's totally true. So along those lines,
Yeah.
the impact of modern and remote work on mental health, like how has, especially like post COVID, well, I mean, Brent, you've been doing this for years and years. So this question might not be as relevant to you, but remote work has changed how we are doing our work nowadays. How has it impacted your mental health?
I wrote this a couple days ago. I think it's really difficult to form good relationships at work now. And it's because other people are doing the same things. They're like, what are my boundaries? What's important to me? And while I think they would like to get to know people at work better, they're really focusing on their families. And the folks I work with tend to be younger and have younger families. So for me, it's definitely changed those relationships because it used to be all of my friends were my work friends. That's where I made most of my friends. And then I mean the political landscape hasn't helped either. It's been difficult to have conversations with people at work where you don't feel like you're having to keep everything in check. So if you're mindful of it, you don't want to offend anybody. And it just I mean watch the news and there's 60 different things we can say that could offend somebody. So sometimes I think we don't talk to each other very much. And it's hard to figure out how to do that. But I always had work friends. I still have the same work friends that I made, 20 years ago. And I talk to them all on a regular basis. I do take a lot of time to talk to people, and that actually has helped with the mental health issues. But there are days when it just frankly is depressing. I mean, I don't even know how else to put it. I think we all get down, and we all feel like, the imposter in the room sometimes. Sometimes we feel like we're not doing as much as other people. There's major FOMA.
Yeah.
I mean, pay has been a challenge. New workers get brought in now at higher salaries than people who have shown allegiance to a company or kind of stayed. So there's just all kinds of weird stuff going on.
I think I was reminded, the thing that got me going to DevLearn this year was, and I was just thinking about this, how I think there's this weird hybrid that just needs to be figured out with folks, as because the value you get from hanging out with somebody for an extended period of time is huge. But at the same time, too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing.
Right.
So if you're hanging out in the office with people for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, that might end up being a little bit too much, right? And conflicts and things like that can start to occur, and everything can kind of go south. But the exact opposite, like not having time to connect, or just connecting in meetings on Zoom or Teams or whatever, once or twice a week, and you have the proverbial, let's do a little chit chat before the meeting starts kind of stuff, superficial things. But then when you get to an event, after you've been working with somebody for, a year, 2 years, you see them face to face for the first time, and you hang out, go to dinners, go to lunch together, help out. All of a sudden, it helps productivity too, I've noticed, because it's like, oh, now I know the details and the things that this other person is doing, and I can feel comfortable to call them and say, oh, how's this customer doing? Oh, what can I help you with here? And they feel more comfortable reaching out to you because they kind of now know a little bit more about what you're doing and the things that and you can start doing that kind of stuff. And that hit home pretty hard after this DevLearn and hanging out with our new folks on the team. So yeah, I mean, it has to happen. To your point, Toddi, like getting out and meeting people face to face, whether it's your colleagues or people immediately outside of your job, but in the same industry, there's all that value there. And I think if there's a way to quantify that and to deliver and to define that value and to deliver that to management or whatever, I think they might be a little bit more interested in seeing it. But, until they see data or something somewhere and their higher ups, say to them, wow, you should really be doing this. A lot of times that stuff just, it doesn't happen. And no matter what you say, it's not going to change it. But I think the politics of work could be a whole nother webinar.
Yeah, or 3 or 4. So I met with a new engineer yesterday who came out of Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I really enjoyed talking to this guy and learned more about what his personal goals were for work. He's a younger person, and I walked away thinking, how cool that he wants to find ways to solve some of our bigger challenges. And he asked me, he said, what can I do to socialize this? And I said, honestly, it needs to get socialized up to management. And I said, you're putting together a really clear idea here. I said, how about road shows? That's part of change management, right? And I said, take it to the management and show them what the value is of solving this problem this way, with the data. And I'm the keeper of all the electronic data. So, that's why we were working together. But it was actually really inspiring to talk to somebody at that phase in their career. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. I remember being this way. So, that does help to talk to the people and meet them. So.
Kim mentioned something earlier about hobbies where you get to meet other people. I'm just wondering, for the both of you, do you guys do anything outside of a digital community, like an in-person community that you're a part of to help, sort of with your mental health and sort of alleviate some of that maybe loneliness that comes from not interacting with groups? Do either of you have anything like that?
I'm part of an over 50 hiking group.
Oh.
And I made my husband go because he's not an extrovert. And so I make him get out and meet new people. I actually scheduled a session, well, a couple of days to go to Chicago to see his best friend because his best friend is coming from Singapore. So, being the enabler that I am, I'm like, okay, you're going to go see your friend. And oh, yeah, you're going to join this over 50 hiking group too.
Nice.
So, and it's a really fun group. Sometimes we have to be on wait lists to get on their hikes, and some of them are strenuous, and some of them are just about going and hanging out and roasting marshmallows. So that's cool.
Yeah. How about you, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, ever since we moved out of the city to the outskirts of Nowheresville, yeah, it's been harder, and I have recognized and realized I need to get back into groups. But so I started, playing guitar in the church band, and so that's helped, a lot. It was a good, easy step, something I've been wanting to get back into for a while, anyways. So that's helped, but I have recognized that I do need to put days aside where I go into town and meet with folks. But I will also say that, just out of sheer need to be connected with other human beings when I was working from home, that's what pushed me, besides being a geek with all the tech and everything, that's what pushed me into live streaming and learning all these tools and figuring out how to do it. It was, I mean, I want to be able to say I do it because I love everybody in the industry. That's part of it too, right? And I want to be helpful. That's part of that. But it was a lot for selfish reasons too. I needed to connect to people. I needed to start my day talking and jumpstart my brain and engage with folks. So, I mean, daily live streaming back when I first started it, I think people thought I was totally insane. And, but for me, that was needed for my mental health. So to me, that was a mental health solution. The technology was there. I was totally geeking out on it and wanted to play with it anyways. And then I realized it helps me talk to people and get to know people and gets my day going. So I chose the morning to do it, and we did it, and it was great. I think people still thought I was crazy, but it worked for me.
Yeah, and it used to be, it seems like social media was a resource to help a little bit with that loneliness and being able to connect with others. And now more than ever, it's just is to me anyway, it feels
Oh yeah.
just going there, it's a battleground. It's very divisive, and you just
Yeah.
like feel
It's
like
not what it used to be, right? I mean, not to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I just got through having that conversation with somebody yesterday as well. And I remember, and I hate to be the old guy here, but I remember the old days, right? When it first started, it was for that. It was when we first started blogging, at least for me, it was to connect with people. And when somebody left a comment, that was a big deal for me. And I remember thinking, wow, it's not just like somebody in my job or a friend of mine. This is somebody from, Japan that found my blog and has something to say. And I remember the first time that happened, it was like, just blew my mind. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And I loved every minute of it. And it was, that was really, really cool. It was really cool. And now it's just it's all gotten out of hand, and doesn't seem to be the positive thing that we were all hoping it was going to be back in the early days, which is sad.
yeah. So along those lines, I mean, what alternatives, like if you are somebody that, where you feel like you need to improve your mental health and you do digital things online, like are there any resources that you go to at all to help with your well-being?
Um, I'm on Instagram and I love my dogs, my dog accounts. That actually helps with a lot of well-being. So it's funny because there's one of my brother's best friends is probably one of the best known guys in this whole space for adopting older non-adoptable dogs, and his stories are hilarious, and I know him personally. And so, if I need something to really smile about, I get onto the Wolfgang 2242 page and see somebody who has more animals than I do, and the chickens and the turkeys and the house pig. So it's always good for a laugh. But I mean, that's probably the most I do as far as engaging, except for LinkedIn. But LinkedIn, it's like I think you can find the authentic people there. Sometimes you get that polarization, but I still think LinkedIn is actually a good space to find people in your space or doing things that are new or innovative or talking about technologies and engaging and asking questions. There's still quite a few authentic people out there. So I mean, LinkedIn has still been kind of my jam. Although I really want to go to an event and meet some people again. Probably didn't mention this, but last year when we went to Utah and we did our like 2-week tour of Utah, all the state parks, I also purposely went to Sam Rogers' house to visit him. I purposely went to see my friend Kristen up in Ogden, and I purposely hunted down my friend Susanna, who I used to work with, and had dinner with her. So like I made sure that I made the time to meet people in my space that I've either known or worked with over the years. And so it was kind of like, it was like my training, learning, and development tour while I was going to all the national parks. So it was
That's
cool.
great. That's
It was
great.
fun.
That's great. I love what I'm seeing in chat too. There's just some really interesting things in here. And Molly, you're somebody that I would love to talk to about this at some point, just because you put everything into your work. I've just seen you like just take on so many different projects and just go for it. So, when I think of somebody that, that has had to set boundaries and you just even burnout, like you definitely come to mind. And then Cindy at Belkin, it just seems like you have so many great ideas and scenarios there that really, really help with workplace well-being. And I think that is so very cool. I admire Belkin because of some of the stories that you share. And then Kim Cinecraft, I mean, yeah, gaming on Discord and things like that. It's awesome that that Dan lets let your team do that type of stuff. So that's great. All right, let me move on to the next slide here. Overcoming isolation and loneliness. I think we've been talking about that a little bit,
Mhm.
and how we've been able to navigate it. Organizational support for mental health. Through your work, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to see that that you're not seeing now?
I being on site, I think there needs to be a much bigger focus on it. No one ever asks anybody how they're doing. And I think they're missing out on opportunities. It's just for a little while at the beginning of COVID, it felt like, some managers were getting online and saying, let's do a health check, and that was at a different company. But I just think that, companies, if they really care, I mean, and who knows if they actually really care, but if they want to keep their people, they need to ask the question, how are you doing and how can we help? And, what can we do to make this environment more conducive to you wanting to stay? Retention's the name of the game, right? But I'm not saying it. It just it feels like it just kind of went out the door. So
Yeah, Brent, have you? I mean, is there anything that you've experienced where you feel like you've seen support for mental health within an organization?
I think the best support that I've ever seen is just when honestly and authentically companies and managers and whatnot just say, yes, family first. Like when something comes up, because something always comes up, it's like, I've got this thing that came up. Can and I've got these 2 meetings this afternoon. Can you cover those meetings for me so I can just focus and deal with this thing? And for people to step up and not to give you the guilt trip, just to say, yeah, how can we help? Take care of your family. Go do what you need to do. We'll take care of this. Reschedule those customers, whatever, if you need to. That's the kind of stuff that I think also garners more support from the employees. I'm always more willing and comfortable and want to put in more time and more hours when I feel like when the shit hits the fan, they're there to support me and, making that stuff happen. So it's not necessarily like official rules and regulations. I think anytime we systematize anything, it just people take advantage of it. And then there's like, well, Brent, you've taken your 5 personal days. You don't have any more personal days. So I'm not sure how we can help you, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
that happened a lot back in the Intel days and, the corporate days, which is one of the reasons why I just couldn't stand it. I mean, life doesn't work that way. So if you can find yourself a good company to work for that can that does support that, right? I mean, obviously, you have to deliver, right? You have to get the work done, and you have to do the projects, do the things. You have to add value to the business that you're working for. But when you need some time for them to just support that time and that effort is, to me, that's the biggest thing. That's huge. And I don't like the contrived type of wellness stuff, right? Like I get if it's everybody's thing to have the game days and all of that kind of stuff, and when it becomes authentic and real and you're all like into it, that's one thing. But when it's like, okay, the whole entire team is going to get together and play games, but maybe not everybody is a game player,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's all kind of just forced and contrived on everybody. That's not something that's ever really turned me on. I think just working together on projects
Mhm.
is a great thing. And just something as simple as it wasn't contrived, DevLearn and meeting the new sales folks and the new team at DevLearn in person. We were working together, and there's something about doing the work together that is way more bonding than going through some sort of I don't know, some sort of leadership or team building exercise and, game or thing that's been contrived or built or whatever, right? When you're when you're actually put under the gun and you have to work and get stuff done with people, that's when everybody's true stuff comes out and you really learn a lot about people. So, I mean, if you want to build a team, you know, give them a goal and tell them to make it happen.
Yeah. I think that was the power of the guild with events, was that we would always know on a regular basis there was this big thing that we had to accomplish.
Yeah.
We would just have to all completely engage in it, and it wasn't going to happen unless we all worked together.
Yeah,
to
everybody knew. Everybody knew. It was very clear. What needed to be done was very, very clear, and everybody had their marching orders. And yeah, I mean, that was awesome.
Mhm.
Well, and I think you've made a really relevant point here. So I have really great coworkers, by the way, that I work with right now, and they will pick up the slack if we need to pick up the slack for each other. But I was talking to somebody that, and interestingly, he's one of my favorite recruiters. I had a conversation with him yesterday. He picked up the phone and called me, and we just kind of caught up. And we were talking, because he sees this from the inside, about how much that means to people to have teams, and team leadership that really supports them and really helps them get the work done versus, like what I said earlier, I don't think management, which is not your team leaders, is paying attention to the mental health. However, I think that you're seeing a layer of people step in now to say, okay, how can we work together? How can we, support each other? So, that's something that I think was always present, but I think it's more present now. How can we help each other out? And that's not a bad thing. I just, how do we build that? And actually, Cindy mentioned that they hired a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I'm like, I think that's awesome. I mean, I wish every company would do that and maybe talk about, how you can build good teams, because maybe our teams need to be what we rely on versus management. Not being biased, I think management is at a different level. We don't relate to them. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's perfect. Last slide, because we're running up on time. But the role of leadership in fostering a positive work culture. I know that both of you have worked as senior L&D leaders for orgs. What do you think the role leadership should be playing in helping with workplace well-being and fostering a positive work culture?
You go, Toddi.
I think it requires that engagement. It's like I actually the other day realized that there's folks on my team that I don't know very well, and they're quiet. There's some introverts and whatnot, but I'd like to know more about what their challenges are and how we can help each other. I actually work with one person who's just phenomenal about asking those questions. And I think, I personally need to model his behavior and start asking, what can I do to help you? And that was exactly what happened with this young man that I met with yesterday. He said, I'm doing this because I want to solve this problem, but I also want to be able to help your team. Because you own a piece of this. And I was like, wow, just talking to each other, just finding out how we can work together, I think is really step one. And we've backed away from that. Remote work has caused part of that. I remember, oh my gosh. And so Brent, I probably worked remotely as long as you have, like, 10, 12 years ago, I was working remotely. I remember getting onto calls and nobody ever turning on the camera or the phone. Talk about being left out. So at least COVID gave us a perspective that, hey, there are other people here. We're all in this boat with just not this one person on the line. But we do need to engage, and it's harder when you're an introvert. I'm not an introvert, so I feel like maybe that's on me. Maybe I need to start that. I did actually suggest to my boss. I said I think we need to spend more time together. Maybe take a half day and do an offsite, and not doing formal team building exercise, but just really getting to know each other.
Right.
And I've gone out with teams that I was training in the field, and I've hosted lunches that I put on my own credit card because I just figured it was time for us to go to lunch, get to know each other.
Mhm.
Down to the basics.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Brent? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just learning when I, got my first role in a leadership role, manager role. I was, I learned a lot. So there's a whole lot of different, feelings that go along with that one. But, my efforts were to try as best to have clear goals and objectives set for everybody to do it. But I think a lot of them were kind of new to the role and then they needed a lot more coaching. So that's where I kind of look back with in hindsight, and then, reflect on maybe some of the things I should have done differently. But I think in general, and this does depend on the org, I think, especially large organizations, like you can't have like the CEO of Intel meeting with every single of 80,000 employees on a regular basis and stuff like that, right? It's not possible. But for them to, set those super clear goals and objectives, and hopefully those goals and objectives trickle down. And then for leadership to just get out of the way and just say, how can I help? For them to be supportive, for them to say, I'm here to help you guys be successful at achieving these goals, as opposed to the guy that's just checking how much time you've been sitting at your desk and did you leave early for the day, whatever, all that kind of stuff. I hope that kind of stuff still doesn't go on. Right now I'm reflecting, back 25 years ago. But I'm sure some of that stuff still goes on. And I think leadership just needs to, I think they'll see more progress and more productivity as they support their employees more, especially if they've hired correctly and if they really truly honestly believe that the people that are on their team are good at what they do. They'll set the direction, point people in the right direction, and just say, go. If you need help, if there are roadblocks, I'm here to take those out of the way and to make the road more smooth for you. But other than that, go. Just go. Go as fast as you remove roadblocks and just be a support function.
Right.
I think that would help a lot of different things: productivity, health and wellness, enjoyment at the office, happiness, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, like Cindy had posted in chat, sometimes leaders are the problem and they lack the self-awareness. Totally believe that's the case. All right. Well, I think that's it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it all up. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I want to mention to everybody that is in the chat and just anyone who might hear this, the recording, we do have a talent development event next week, a virtual event. It's called Crafting Success. And so far, it's been great organizing it. We have some really, really great speakers. Still filling out a couple spots. In fact, I have a panel I think we're going to try to set up for next week. I don't know, Toddi, Brent, you guys up for being in a panel? I've got like a couple people that are in there. If you guys are interested, we're looking for panelists right now to talk about. Well, the topic of the panel still has to be figured out, but we're pulling that together. But let me know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from what I'm seeing so far, it's looking really, really good program-wise, super interesting. I put the link in chat, so that one is a free one, so please sign up, and it takes place next Thursday and Friday. So far, we'll have between like 6 to 8 sessions. And with that, Toddi and Brent, thank you so much for doing this. Can we do this again?
Oh, please. I missed you guys. Seriously.
Me too. Yeah.
We're there is, I would like to, kind of follow up with some of this and also like tackle that thing about working in toxic work environments and sort of like being able to navigate all that. And then of course, just lots of different things. In fact, I want to have more conversations about AI just because that is just spinning so quickly. I use ChatGPT every day. I would, I use it a lot for pretty much everything, including like I'm using it even now to figure out my rotations for my 4th grade basketball team, like figuring out who's going to play when. It's crazy that
Cool.
I could actually ask AI to help me figure out who's going to start and who's not. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about that in TLD cast. All right. So everyone, thanks a lot. Farhan, good to see you. Cindy, Kim, Molly, thank you so much for being a part of today. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Adios,
Take
folks.
care.
Thanks, Luis.
Yep.
Thanks, Toddi.